Tarpley in the upper right chest. Deputy Jones returned fire, striking Harvey at least twice in the legs. Harvey continued to run from the apartment, but was later arrested by deputies a short time later and a short distance away at 2722 Margaret Court. Deputy Tarpley was given aid at the scene by deputies and then transported to AU Medical Center by a Richmond County supervisor, where he was treated for his gunshot wound. And fortunately, he was later released last night. Harvey was also transported to AU Medical Center and was treated and was also released last night. Harvey is now being held at the Charles B. Webster Detention Center. Harvey's 5-year-old son received cuts to his knee from glass and did not receive any other injuries that we're aware of. He did require some stitches, but was later released last night to a relative. It appears that Harvey was wanted on multiple warrants out of Richmond County and the Waynesboro Police Department. She was also considered a designated felon as a juvenile for aggravated assault. She has an extensive criminal history and is on probation and parole. This was another senseless act of gun violence by a person by all rights. One should not be free, much less carrying a firearm. She put deputies at great risk, as well as her 5-year-old child. We're truly blessed that no one was killed yesterday. Our prayers go out to Deputy Tarpley and Deputy Brown, as well as their families. We also pray for the 5-year-old child that was needlessly subjected to this life-altering trauma. Pursuant to our policy, we have requested that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation conduct an investigation into the officer-involved shooting, as well as the aggravated assault on the officer. I would like to thank all the agencies who offered their assistance during this incident, and a special thank you to the Fire EMS, Gold Cross, and the AU Medical Center staff for their invaluable assistance with the care of our deputies during this traumatic incident. Again, all criminal charges will be conducted by the GBI, who will release a statement later this evening for formal charges, which are pending at this time. I will answer any questions that you have.
Have you guys been called out to that apartment complex for other incidents that you know of?
Offhand, we have, but I can't give you any specifics.
Do you guys have any partnership or anything like that for security purposes or anyone out there?
There's nothing in place besides routine patrols, in which we all do. Our crime suppression team, which is a proactive team who was not assigned to any particular area, has patrolled that particular area and was patrolling it because we had incidents on that particular area of town, not specifically that apartment complex, but in that general area. So that is an area that we do target frequently for proactive patrols.
You said she had warrants out of Richmond County and Burke County. Do you know what those warrants were for?
Not at this time. There are orders shows, but I don't know the specific origin of the warrant. She was on probation and parole, so they may be extended from that. So we will, as we get into it further, we'll get you what the origin of the warrants were. But they are active warrants.
Are there any cameras at this apartment complex that you know of that are functioning?
None that we've been able to access. Now again, it's just only been a day. The GBI may, during their course investigation, may locate some footage there, but that'll be up to them to release it or make note if they do find any.
With the Sheriff's Department or with the GBI have any body cam footage at the moment?
Both deputies have body cam footage. It is being reviewed by both Richmond County Sheriff Office for Internal Affairs Investigation, and also the Georgia Bureau of Investigation has been provided copies of all body camera footage.
They were wearing bulletproof vests?
Yes, all deputies was armed, wearing their armor. This particular wound went just above the right shoulder, right above the vest.
What are the specific charges that the suspect is being held under for this incident?
Right now, that'll be through the GBI once they conduct their investigation. We're just holding them right now based on the outstanding warrants we have. But any official charges based on this incident will be handed down by the GBI.
How long have they been with the department?
I think both deputies came in 2018 and they're now assigned to the crime suppression team. And I think we'll be getting photos and stuff out to you all very momentarily, or might be there before you get back. So.
Folks, the deputy's back on active duty now?
Tarpley is not back on active duty right now. Right now, like I said, Deputy Jones is going to be placed on administrative leave because of officer-involved shooting with pay. That's our standard procedure. Deputy Tarpley is at home recovering from his injuries, and then we'll just see how he progresses right now. His prognosis is good. I don't have a timeline for his return, but any officer-involved shooting, our standard policy is to place officers on admin leave until the investigation is concluded or we have a clear understanding what has occurred. All deputies at the scene who actually responded also are given access to grief treatment and training to exercise that. So we'll go that whole gamut before we actually clear them to come back to work. Because as you know, in a shooting incident such as this, it may not be just the physical trauma, but the emotional trauma is something that we have to deal with too. So we're not going to put anybody back on the street until we know for sure that they're ready.
Talk about how it made you feel yesterday when you got this call, hearing that one of your officers was involved in the shooting.
It's one of the worst feelings you can have as a leader of an agency. I was actually here in the office and heard the call go out on the radio. And if you ever know how our system works, we have a special alert tone for an officer in distress. And your program, if you hear that tone, it immediately goes to your gut because you know something terrible has happened. So once that tone did go out and we heard it, of course we all responded to the scene, and we just wanted to make sure we didn't know the condition of the deputy. We know he had been shot, we know he was being transported, but at that time you don't know how serious the injury is. You know, unfortunately we've had our share of officers lost in the line of duty. And as we know in this country now, the uptick in gun violence and assaults on officers, it really, like I said, is gut-wrenching. So we were relieved that when we found out that it didn't appear to be life-threatening. But, you know, those initial 10, 15 minutes of not knowing, it's one of the worst times you can have as a leader of an agency.
How did the child get the glass on it? Where did the glass come from?
We assume from inside the apartment, the suspect, once she fired the shot, she actually retreated back into the rear of the apartment. Deputies returned fire, so I'm assuming it's from the glass from somewhere inside the apartment complex. I mean, sorry, the apartment itself.
Was this her apartment? Do you guys know?
We believe it was her apartment, yes.
Is there any, I know it's early, but is there any future plans for extra security in that area?
Well, again, we don't think this is an incident involving a particular area. We believe this is an incident involving a particular individual who had made up her mind that she was not going back to jail. Like I said, this was a simple, as you can say, a traffic stop, which escalated very quickly. At no point would you have ever thought that a mother, one, would pull a weapon on two deputies and fire that weapon, but also to have your 5-year-old child standing in between you and that officer. So you can actually imagine how the officers felt when they, in fact, trying to defend themselves, had to return fire, also seeing that a 5-year-old child was also there too. And you have to take that in consideration too. So it could have been extremely tragic all around for all of us. So it's unfathomable. So it's not the area. This is definitely a result of an individual who had no regard only for her life, but the life of her own child, and that's unconscionable to me.
So there's no reason for the public to be alarmed, just that.
No, like I said, our main focus again, we're talking about gun violence. This is a person who should not have been in possession of a firearm. She was legally unable to carry a firearm, but yet she was, and she decided to use it in an offensive manner. And that is our biggest challenge today. Again, not the legal ownership of guns in this area, but the criminal elements who do not supposed to be in possession and use them in an offensive manner. You know, it's one thing to engage in gunfire with random individuals, but when you go and start firing at two law enforcement officers, that's a different mindset, because at that point, everybody's armed. And like I said again, having your 5-year-old child directly in the line of fire, you know, as a parent, that is something I really just can't comprehend right now.
Talk about how, in a situation like this, a deputy's training really comes into play and how important it is.
Absolutely. That's why these two deputies, we think, again, based on what I have seen and what I've learned, and I've watched the videos, had did a remarkable job. One, at the restraint. Two, when they returned fire, suppressive fire, and struck the victim, and she actually ran, their instincts were, that fact was to care for the deputy, where they could have just took off after her. But, you know, once the immediate threat was gone, they turned their focus directly on the care of the deputy. A perimeter was set up and the suspect was caught later. So, you know, in that speak of an instance, that is remarkable, where training comes in. You know, you're taught to fire to suppress the threat. Once they saw their lives were no longer in danger, they backed out, backup came, cared for the deputy, set a perimeter, and then, like I said, the suspect was taken into custody without any further incident. And also, I failed to mention that the suspect weapon was retrieved at the scene also. So.
Earlier you talked about how this individual has a lengthy criminal history as well as active warrants. What action would you like to see taken in terms of charges and prosecution to see that she doesn't commit a crime like this again?
Well, you know, that's a little bit outside my purview. We always think that violent criminals need to be put away outside of the public. I've always said before that jail is not a cure-all to all violence, but I do think violent offenders should be kept away from the public. So in this particular instance, like I said, once I have been in touch with our district attorney. He's out of town, but we have spoken about this particular incident. I'm sure when the case gets to him, he'll do the due process as it goes forward. Aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer carries a very healthy sentence, and I hope that, again, is outside our purview, but I hope the court realizes that. I hope they take the totality of all the circumstances into play, including the 5-year-old child, and then the sentence would be appropriate at that time.
What kind of charge did the driver make? Just a drug charge?
I believe so. Don't quote me on that right now. Let me see if I got that. He was arrested on the two state court bench warrants, so he had 2 state court bench warrants on him. Any other questions? No? Again, I want to thank y'all for coming. Like I said, this is still an active investigation. We believe, like I said before, that the facts that I've given you are accurate. If they do change, myself or someone from the GBI will provide a correction. But like I said, based on all the evidence I have seen and collected, we feel that these are the accurate accounts of what happened. We feel fortunate today as a law enforcement family. I know, as you've seen from some of the reports, maybe from yesterday, there's a large contingent of law enforcement who arrived at the hospital. Again, our on-staff counselor also arrived at the hospital. The hospital provided some counselors there too. Because again, this affects my entire law enforcement community. This doesn't affect the 2 deputies involved. They let you know that each and every day the deputies put their lives on the line, and we hope that the public sincerely appreciates that. I know that sometimes law enforcement gets a bad rap based on some national narratives, some things that actually happen, but I really hope the public takes into account that this is really a life and death situation, and these officers do it because they love the job and they love protecting this community. So I couldn't be more proud to be the leader of this agency as I am today. So thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.